A single mother's car broke down on a dark highway with no cell service. When three bikers pulled up behind her, she feared the worst. What happened next led to an unexpected friendship, and what she gave them in return changed everything. This is Hammer and Tails. Let's get started. Kelly Martinez gripped the steering wheel of her 15-year-old Honda Civic as the engine coughed, sputtered, and finally died on the shoulder of Highway 78. The dashboard lights flickered once and went dark, leaving her sitting in complete silence on a stretch of rural road where the nearest house was miles away. At 28, Kelly had learned to handle most problems life threw at her. Single motherhood, working 2 jobs to keep food on the table, dealing with landlords and bill collectors, and every other challenge that came with raising an 8-year-old daughter alone. But sitting in a dead car on an empty highway at 9 o'clock at night was testing even her considerable problem-solving skills. Kelly pulled out her phone and stared at the screen. No service. She'd been driving home from her evening shift at the medical clinic in Millbrook, taking the back road because it shaved 15 minutes off her commute. 15 minutes she could spend with Anna before bedtime. 15 minutes that seemed less important now than being stranded on a well-traveled highway. Through her rearview mirror, Kelly could see the glow of Millbrook's lights maybe 8 miles behind her. Ahead, nothing but darkness and the distant outline of mountains against the star-filled sky. She could walk back toward town, but that would mean leaving her car unlocked with her purse and work bag inside. Kelly had been saving for months to replace the Honda's dying transmission. Every extra dollar went into a coffee can in her kitchen labeled Car Fund, but she was still $200 short of what the mechanic had quoted her. Now it looked like the transmission had given up before she could afford to fix it. Anna was staying with Mrs. Rodriguez tonight, the elderly neighbor who watched her when Kelly worked late shifts. At least her daughter was safe and wouldn't worry until morning. Kelly could figure this out. She always did. That's when she heard the motorcycles. The sound started as a distant rumble, growing louder as it approached from the direction of Millbrook. Kelly's heart started beating faster as she watched 3 headlights appear in her rearview mirror, their engines creating a low thunder that seemed to shake her small car. Her hands clenched so tight on the steering wheel her knuckles went white. She imagined headlines, "Single mother disappears on Highway 78. Kelly had grown up hearing stories about bikers, late-night news reports about bar fights and drug arrests, movies that painted them as dangerous outlaws who preyed on vulnerable people. Everything she'd been taught told her to be afraid of men on motorcycles, especially 3 of them on a dark road where no one could hear her scream. The lead motorcycle slowed as it approached her car, followed by the other 2. Kelly watched in her mirror as they pulled up behind her, parking their bikes in a line across the road. She locked her doors and considered her options. Run into the darkness and hope they didn't follow? Stay in the car and pretend she wasn't there? The riders dismounted and began walking toward her car. In the glow of their headlights, Kelly could see they were large men wearing leather vests and patches she couldn't read. The leader was tall and broad-shouldered, with a gray beard and arms covered in tattoos. Kelly's hands shook as she rolled down her window just a crack when the bearded man approached. "Evening, ma'am," he said, his voice surprisingly gentle. "Looks like you might be having some car trouble." "I'm fine," Kelly managed to say, though clearly she wasn't. "Name's Marcus," the man said, removing his riding gloves. "These are my friends Bobby and Jack. We're heading home from a charity ride in Austin. Mind if we take a look under your hood?" Kelly studied his face in the dim light. His eyes were kind, not threatening. There was something grandfatherly about his expression despite his intimidating appearance. "I don't have any money," she said quietly. "Didn't ask for any," Marcus replied. "Just asked if we could help." Something in his tone made Kelly's fear begin to fade. These men could have already done whatever they wanted if their intentions were bad. Instead, they were asking permission and keeping a respectful distance. "Okay," Kelly said, popping the hood release. What Kelly didn't know was that this simple moment of trust was about to change all of their lives in ways none of them could imagine. Marcus lifted the hood and shined a flashlight into the engine compartment while Bobby and Jack looked on. Kelly got out of her car, still nervous but no longer terrified. "Transmission's gone," Marcus said after a few minutes. "Fluid's all over the road behind you. She's not going anywhere tonight." "How much does something like that cost to fix?" Kelly asked, though she was pretty sure she already knew. "More than most folks have lying around," Bobby said sympathetically. He was younger than Marcus, maybe 40, with kind eyes and grease permanently embedded under his fingernails. Jack, who looked like he might have been a linebacker before turning gray, was already walking back to his bike. "I'll call Pete's Towing. They can get you to town tonight." "I can't afford a tow truck," Kelly admitted. "Don't worry about that," Marcus said. "Pete owes me a favor. I can't let you pay for my tow. Lady, you got a choice. Let us help you get home safe, or sit here all night hoping the next person who stops has good intentions." Kelly looked around at the empty highway and realized Marcus was right. Anna needed her mother to come home safely, even if it meant accepting help from strangers. "Thank you," she said. "I'll pay you back somehow." "No need for that," Marcus said, but Kelly could see something in his expression change slightly, as if he'd just thought of something. 20 minutes later, Pete's tow truck arrived to take Kelly and her Honda back to Millbrook. As they loaded the car, Marcus approached Kelly one more time. "You said you work at the medical clinic?" "I'm a nurse there, yes." "What kind of nursing?" "Family practice mostly, some pediatrics." Marcus nodded thoughtfully. "That's good work, taking care of people." "It is," Kelly agreed, wondering why he was asking. "Well, Kelly, if you ever need anything, I mean anything at all, you give me a call." Marcus handed her a business card with his name and phone number. "Martinez Auto Repair. I do honest work for fair prices." Kelly looked at the card, surprised. "You're a mechanic?" "Own my own shop. Been fixing cars and bikes for 30 years. As the tow truck pulled away with Kelly's car, she watched the three bikers mount their motorcycles and disappear into the night. She still couldn't quite believe what had just happened. The men she'd been terrified of had turned out to be her rescuers. But Kelly had no idea that her rescue was just the beginning of a friendship that would reveal something about Marcus that even his closest friends didn't know. 3 weeks later, Kelly's Honda was still sitting in the parking lot behind her apartment building, transmission dead and repair costs far beyond her reach. She'd been taking the bus to work, which meant leaving home earlier and getting back later, which meant less time with Anna and more stress trying to manage their daily routine. Marcus had called twice to check on her, offering to look at the car for free, but Kelly had politely declined. She couldn't afford the repair even if he diagnosed the problem accurately. It was Bobby who changed everything. Kelly was waiting for the evening bus after her shift when a familiar motorcycle pulled up to the clinic's entrance. Bobby removed his helmet and walked over to her. "Kelly, Marcus asked me to stop by and see how you're doing." "I'm fine, just waiting for the bus." "Mind if I give you a ride home? I promise I'm a safe driver." Kelly hesitated. She'd never ridden on a motorcycle before, and Anna would be expecting her soon. "It's faster than the bus," Bobby added with a smile. 10 minutes later, Kelly was holding on to Bobby's jacket as they rode through Millbrook toward her apartment. The bike ride was exhilarating in a way she hadn't expected, the feeling of freedom completely different from being enclosed in a car. When they reached her building, Anna was playing in the courtyard with other children from the complex. She ran over when she saw her mother dismount from the motorcycle. "Mom, you rode on a motorcycle." "This is my friend Bobby," Kelly said. "He gave me a ride home from work." Bobby knelt down to Anna's level. "Hey there, kiddo, what's your name?" "Anna Martinez." She paused. "Are you in a motorcycle gang?" Bobby laughed. "We're a motorcycle club. We ride together and help people when they need it." "That's cool. My mom helps people too. She's a nurse." "I know, she's pretty awesome." Bobby stood and turned to Kelly. "Marcus wanted me to ask you something. We've got a little situation at the shop and we could use someone with medical training to help us out." "What kind of situation?" Well, it's kind of embarrassing, but Marcus cut his hand pretty bad working on an engine yesterday. He won't go to the doctor because he's stubborn, but it probably needs stitches. Kelly frowned. How bad is the cut? Bad enough that he's been making excuses not to work on anything delicate today. Bobby, if it needs medical attention, he should go to the emergency room. I know that and you know that, but try telling Marcus that. Kelly looked at Anna, who was listening to their conversation with interest. When? If you're free tomorrow after work, we could swing by the shop, just to take a look, see if it's something that really needs professional attention. Kelly found herself nodding. Marcus had helped her when she was stranded. The least she could do was return the favor. But Kelly had no idea that Marcus's injured hand was about to reveal a secret that would change everything she thought she knew about the tough biker who'd rescued her. Martinez Auto Repair sat on the edge of Millbrook's industrial district, a clean, well-organized shop that specialized in both cars and motorcycles. When Bobby brought Kelly and Anna by the next evening, they found Marcus in his office, awkwardly trying to fill out paperwork with his left hand while his right was wrapped in what looked like an old t-shirt. Marcus, this is Kelly, the nurse I told you about, Bobby said. And this is her daughter, Anna. Marcus looked up from his desk, embarrassed. Bobby, I told you I don't need a doctor. I'm not a doctor, I'm a nurse, Kelly said gently. And Bobby's right. You should have someone look at that hand. It's fine. Let me be the judge of that. Anna had wandered over to look at the photographs covering Marcus's office walls, pictures of motorcycles, group rides, charity events, and, in the center, a photo of Marcus with a little girl about Anna's age. Is that your granddaughter? Anna asked. Marcus's expression softened. That's my Emma. She's 6. She's pretty. Do you read her stories? Something flickered across Marcus's face before he answered. Sometimes. Kelly was unwrapping Marcus's hand, revealing a deep gash across his palm that definitely needed professional attention. Marcus, this needs stitches. It's going to get infected if you don't get it properly cleaned and closed. Can't you just put a bandage on it? I could, but that's not going to help it heal properly. Kelly cleaned the wound carefully while Marcus tried not to wince. As she worked, she noticed something on his desk that made her pause. The paperwork he'd been struggling with was a simple invoice, but he'd only managed to fill in half the information, and his handwriting was shaky and uncertain. Marcus, are you having trouble with the paperwork because of your hand, or? Marcus's jaw tightened. Just the hand. But Kelly had worked with enough patience to recognize when someone was being evasive. She finished bandaging his wound without pushing the issue. This really needs stitches, she said again. I can drive you to the clinic after hours. No waiting, no fuss. I appreciate the offer, but I'll manage. Anna, who'd been quietly studying the photographs, spoke up. Mr. Marcus, do you have any books here for Emma when she visits? Books? You know, for reading to her. My mom reads to me every night. Marcus looked uncomfortable. Emma usually brings her own books when she comes to visit. But grandpas are supposed to have books too. That's what Mrs. Rodriguez says. Kelly saw Marcus's expression change, a flash of something that looked like pain. Anna, why don't you go look at the motorcycles with Bobby while I finish up with Mr. Marcus? After Anna and Bobby left the office, Kelly sat down across from Marcus's desk. Marcus, can I ask you something personal? He nodded reluctantly. Are you having trouble reading? The silence that followed told Kelly everything she needed to know. Marcus stared at his desk, his jaw working like he was trying to decide whether to be angry or admit the truth. It's not that simple, he said finally. What do you mean? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. I never learned right. In school, the teachers said I wasn't paying attention, that I was being lazy. By the time I was in high school, I'd given up trying. Kelly's heart went out to him. Marcus, that doesn't mean you can't learn now. I'm 56 years old, little late to be learning to read. It's never too late, and it sounds like you might have had a learning disability that just wasn't diagnosed properly." Marcus looked up at her. "You think so?" "I think you're a smart man who built a successful business and earned the respect of everyone who knows you. I think if you'd had the right help in school, things might have been different." "Emma loves when people read to her," Marcus said quietly. "She's always asking me to read her favorite book, but I have to make excuses. Tell her I'm tired or that she should read to me instead." Kelly felt a lump forming in her throat. This tough, capable man who'd rescued her on a dark highway was carrying around a secret that was breaking his heart. "What if I helped you?" Kelly heard herself say. "Helped me what?" "Learn to read. Properly, I mean, so you could read to Emma." Marcus stared at her. "Why would you do that?" "Because you helped me when I needed it, and because every grandfather should be able to read bedtime stories to his granddaughter." What neither of them knew was that this simple offer was about to unlock a friendship that would change both their lives in ways they never imagined. 2 weeks later, Kelly found herself sitting at her kitchen table with Marcus 3 evenings a week, working through basic reading exercises with the patience of someone who understood what it meant to struggle. Marcus had been embarrassed at first, frustrated by how difficult it was to distinguish between letters that seemed to flip and move on the page. But Kelly had done her research and suspected he had dyslexia, a learning disability that made reading challenging but definitely not impossible. "The letters keep moving," Marcus said one evening, rubbing his forehead in frustration. "That's normal for people with dyslexia," Kelly assured him. "We just need to find techniques that work for your brain." Anna had become an enthusiastic assistant teacher, encouraging Marcus when he successfully read a sentence and celebrating small victories with the pure joy of a child who didn't understand why adults found reading difficult. "You're getting better, Mr. Marcus," Anna said one evening after he'd successfully read 3 pages of a simple story. "Soon you'll be able to read chapter books like my mom does." Marcus smiled at her enthusiasm, but Kelly could see the determination in his eyes. This wasn't just about learning to read. This was about being the grandfather Emma deserved. Progress was slow but steady. Marcus struggled with longer words and complex sentences, but his determination never wavered. Kelly taught him strategies for dealing with dyslexia, ways to break down words and use context clues to understand meaning. "Why are you doing this?" Marcus asked one evening after a particularly challenging lesson. "What do you mean?" "This. Spending your free time teaching me something I should have learned 40 years ago." Kelly considered the question. "Because when my car broke down that night, you didn't ask what was in it for you. You just helped." "That's different." "How is it different?" Marcus was quiet for a moment. "What you're giving me, it's not just help. It's a chance to be the kind of grandfather I want to be." 3 months after their first lesson, Marcus felt ready to attempt something he'd been dreaming about since Emma was born. Her favorite book was a simple story about a brave little mouse, and she'd asked him to read it to her countless times. Kelly had practiced the book with Marcus until he could read it smoothly, but they both knew that reading to Kelly in her kitchen was different from reading to his granddaughter for the first time. "You'll do fine," Kelly assured him as he prepared to leave for Emma's house that Saturday morning. "Remember, if you get stuck on a word, just sound it out slowly. What if she realizes I'm struggling? Then you tell her you're learning, just like she is. There's nothing wrong with learning new things." That evening, Marcus called Kelly with a voice that sounded different than she'd ever heard before. "I did it," he said simply. "How did it go?" "She sat on my lap while I read the whole book. When I finished, she looked up at me and said, 'Grandpa, you read that really good. Will you read it again?'" Kelly felt tears in her eyes. "How do you feel?" "Like I can do anything," Marcus said. "Like maybe it's never too late to become the person you want to be." Word of Marcus's achievement spread quietly through the motorcycle club. Bobby and Jack knew he'd been working on something with Kelly, But they didn't know the details until Marcus read a simple story aloud at their next club meeting, explaining how Kelly had helped him learn something he'd given up on years ago. The tough men who rode together, worked together, and looked out for each other sat in respectful silence as their friend and leader shared his vulnerability and his victory. "Sometimes the best help comes from unexpected places," Marcus said, looking around at his brothers. "And sometimes the best gifts are the ones you can't buy." Jack, a man of few words who'd known Marcus for 15 years, simply nodded and said, "Good for you, brother." Bobby added, "Emma's lucky to have you as her grandpa." But it was what Marcus said next that really showed how much had changed. "Kelly gave me something I thought was gone forever. The chance to be the grandfather I always wanted to be. That's worth more than any favor we could ever repay." 6 months later, Kelly's Honda had been repaired by Marcus and Bobby for the cost of parts only. She tried to pay them full price, but they insisted that friends help friends, and that her teaching had been payment enough. Emma had become a regular visitor to Kelly's apartment, where she and Anna would play while Marcus continued his reading lessons. He was working on chapter books now, determined to keep up with Emma's growing reading skills. "You know what's funny?" Kelly said one evening as Marcus successfully read through a difficult passage. "What's that?" "That night when you stopped to help me, I was so scared. I thought you were the last people I'd want to meet on a dark road. And now? Now I think you might be the best people I've ever met." Marcus smiled. "Funny how things work out." Kelly watched him gather his books and prepare to leave for another evening of reading to Emma, and realized that the best gifts really were the ones you couldn't buy. She'd given Marcus the ability to read to his granddaughter. He'd given her a community of friends who looked out for each other. But most importantly, they'd both learned that the scariest-looking help can come from the most unexpected places, and that it's never too late to learn something that changes your life. As Marcus started his motorcycle and waved goodbye, Kelly could hear Anna reading in her bedroom, practicing for school the next day. 2 families had been brought together by a broken-down car and the courage to accept help from strangers. The simple act of teaching someone to read had created bonds that would last a lifetime, proving that sometimes the most powerful gifts are the ones that help people become who they've always wanted to be.
Liked hearing this one? Hit that like button and subscribe to Hammer and Tales for more. Check out the next story on your screen. It's a good one. See you next time.